if you find the right doctor, being that my doctors kept leaving the clinic, like they would come to the clinic. I don't know what it was about them that they didn't want to stay, but I would find one that I liked. They would leave, and I would have to go and spill my guts to another one. And then that one would leave, and then I would have to go and do the same thing. So my thing right now, the one that I will talk about is the PTSD. That one right there is like, I can relate more. I can relate to that and to the other things too, the anxiety, like, because I overthink. And I think I could do everything on my own. But I would tell anybody, if you go in, just be patient. Just be patient. You're going to go through a lot, but just be patient.
I will say
and some people don't want to call those hotlines.
No, and I know, and I hope you do. So we're going to get into that so some people can understand what is it to have PTSD. PTSD is actually called post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's not unusual for people who have experienced traumatic events to have flashbacks, nightmares, or intrusive memories when something terrible happens. This is what occurs when someone is having PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or some of us know it as PTSD, is a serious, potentially debilitating, which means it can just really take you out. It's a condition that can occur in a person who have experienced or witnessed natural disaster, serious accidents, terrorist incidents, sudden death of a loved one, men that have gone through battles and war, personal assault such as rape or life-threatening events. There are currently about 8 million people in the U.S. that are living with PTSD. And research recently showed that PTSD among military people may be a physical brain injury, because this is something that is very intrusive to the brain, because it leaves like a stamp that can never be erased. And sometimes you just never know when those thoughts are going to come back. And I have to admit, I myself was suffering from PTSD without even knowing it. I lost my mother at the age of 18. It was a very traumatic way of losing her. I didn't go to therapy, and I do recall I didn't even know I had PTSD. I just knew when I went back to college, I was having night sweats, night terrors, that I wind up, not sleeping by myself sometimes because I would just have nightmares, So they say something like this with women. Women are twice likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder as men, and children can also develop it too. And often this occurs with depression and substance abuse, and it can attribute to anxiety disorder. So trauma survivors who have PTSD may have trouble with their close family, relationships, or friendships, and their symptoms can cause problems with trust. Being closeness, communication, and problem solving also may affect the way the survivor acts with others. So in turn, the way a loved one responds to him or her affects the trauma survivor. Because if you are a person that is surviving from PTSD and you have particular patterns and relationships, if the person that is receiving what you're saying at the time, if they're not able to be open to receive how you are, that can even cause some anxiety and stress and cause you to go back into being inward and not really wanting to trust certain people. So these are some of the signs. Like, those were some of the signs that I spoke of. And it's okay, guys, right about now, it's okay to not be okay. Now, I shared with you, Ms. Jones, a little bit of my, my little run-in. You want to share with the audience maybe any insight on, some things that you experienced with PTSD or even discovered that you had it?
Well, I did. I lost my mother. I was 4. I was turning 5 that next month. So she died in the house in front of us. So right then and there, it's like my doctors had made me understand that I have abandonment issues. I have trust issues. And, I don't remember her. So it's like, like I always say, you can't miss what you don't remember. But I miss the idea of having a mother, so, but that's what triggered me. So a lot of people, they go through rape. They may go through all types of stuff, that push that on them, but that was my general experience with having it. I do eat. I have yet to figure out exactly why. But when I sit and I think about when I was younger and when my grandmother was alive and she would cook food. And if I sit and I think about it hard enough, that's what I came sitting with, like I said, being in this quarantine. I thought, like, when we were little, she would cook me food. And she would be like, I made you spaghetti and meatballs, your favorite. That was my favorite. So she was like, I made you this, or I made you a cake, or I brought you this, and I would eat. It had gotten to the point where I think she noticed it because I used to get in trouble. And I used to have rations when I used to have to, live with my aunt, and I would be the only one in the house going walking,
Right.
And I'm not mad about it, but I guess people did start to see it. Now I'm going to make, I don't know. I think it was just more so of that, but that right there, and then when stuff happens, I automatically eat. I turn to food. I don't want to turn to food.
Right.
But that's what ends up happening.
And that's, considered like, over, an obsessive with eating. So it's a compulsive, compulsive overeating. So here's an article that I'll share with you about compulsive overeating and how to stop it. So what they say pretty much is like, first off, think back to the last time you ate so much you felt absolutely stuffed. Were you tearing into a huge cake to celebrate a friend's birthday, loading up on some turkey and sweet potatoes at Thanksgiving, or were you home alone? Maybe at the end of the day, how did you feel afterwards? Simply annoyed that you gave yourself a stomach ache, or were you feeling tormented? Do you feel guilty? Eating too much every once in a while is normal. So eating for emotional reasons, from the moment you were born, we're nurtured with food, okay? So that's where it comes from, rewarded with food, and so emotional connections to food are normal. And that's what you just mentioned, You connected eating the spaghetti and meatballs because of an emotional connection with your grandmother. And she also was someone that you were connected to since baby, and she passed. So that's maybe another trigger for you of, with the emotional eating, okay? Yeah. People who compulsively overeat, though, may use food as their only way of coping with negative emotions. As a result, they often feel that their eating is out of control. And they think about food all the time and feel guilty or ashamed or depressed after eating. That's very different from what someone feels after eating a bit at Thanksgiving, okay? So what that happens to be is what you do is you have a clinical disorder called binge eating disorder, or BED. So people with BED compulsively eat large amounts of food in a short amount of time, and they may feel guilty at least once a week over, months. It could be 3 months down, and you're doing it, every day, every other day. So how do you get started with something like this? How can you tackle this? In some cases, people simply overeat out of mindless habit, like always sitting down with a bag of chips in front of the TV. Sometimes it's, an underlying emotional problem, that a negative body image can play a role in it, okay? And, for example, can people be addicted to food? So they say in recent years, food addiction has become a popular idea among some scientists. Those researchers say that certain foods high in fat, sugar, salt are addictive, because studies in animals have shown that rats that binge on sugar, for example, can develop signs of dependency, okay? So how can I control compulsive eating? The bottom line is, just like with mental issues, MD is, we all go to WebMD. I'm a victim of that too. So from WebMD is saying, because we all try to self-medicate, honey. But WebMD is saying it can be hard to stop overeating. So seek help, okay? Because this is a deeply rooted emotional problem. So you may want to start going to a psychologist, and you want to work with, or you can go to a psychotherapist, it says, because you want to work with a counselor that can help you uncover the psychological issues mentally that trigger you to wanting to eat, because it's something psychologically. And right now, minds are all over the place with certain people because we're shut in. We never really thought about being shut in as often as we are now. You know what I mean? So now, with this shut-in and quarantine, that causes a lot of things to overreact in your mind emotionally. And so that may be another reason why you are overeating, because your emotions are being triggered in so many areas, and that is a way for you to be comforted. So psychotherapy may be a good help. And I will admit, I loved my psychotherapist. I did start going into psychotherapy, guys, and I'm going to admit I am a huge advocate for mental health. I have only been on this road of mental health for a year, but I do go, and I did go to a psychotherapist. I loved how she sat with me, and in the first session, this woman was able to pinpoint all these dark areas in my brain that I never remembered about why I became angry or what caused me to have anxiety, what emotion was triggered from things that happened in my past. And she was an amazing therapist and someone that I really appreciated, because it's different if you go into a psychologist. A psychologist is someone that can help prescribe you medications, and also, well, the psychologist helps to monitor your meds. A psychiatrist, they also can write you medication, but they're not going to go to the deep root of what's going on with you mentally. So going to a psychotherapist, the psychotherapist is the one that can actually dig into the meat and potatoes of what's happening with you.
Well, I was blessed to have both. I was blessed with my psychiatrist in New York, and I was blessed with my therapist. Both of them, I spent a lot of time with both of them, like, you know, which was a blessing, because every psychiatrist will not do that. Mine did.
Right.
And to give him a shout out, his name is Dr. Foote at Montefiore Mental Health Center. And Galena Rakin was my therapist. Anybody ever needs some help in New York, try them out in the Bronx.
Hey, big up shout out to the Bronx. I'm from there too.
Okay.
So what the good thing is that you talk about it. And sometimes even support groups, talking to others about what you go through is also another help. Not just with anyone, guys. You have to still be careful with who you share your feelings with. And that's just because this is a sensitive matter. And sometimes you got to make sure who you're sharing your feelings with, or things you're going through, is going to be received by the person and that they're supportive. So, Ms. Jones, you was mentioning about OCD. So OCD, guys, is obsessive compulsive disorder, and it affects millions of people from all walks of life, okay? According to the Center for Anxiety and for the Center for Disease and Control Prevention, they state that 1.2% of adults in the U.S. in the past year have currently been diagnosed with having OCD. And it's in adults that are pretty much, the triggers can be like obsessions or intrusive and unwanted thoughts. You could have images or urges that cause distress and anxiety. You have behaviors that make you feel compelled to perform something in order to ease your anxiety. So you start cleaning, or, you know, but this is to ease another anxiety. So common compulsions could be like include checking on something, washing, cleaning, arranging. You know, there isn't always a logical connection between obsession and compulsion. Often people with OCD experience a variety of obsessions and compulsions. Many people with OCD recognize that they have obsessions and they have compulsions, and they're not rational. Nevertheless, you know, they feel strong, and they feel a very strong need to do what they're doing, and they do it in a repetitive order, okay?
Yes.
And this is a behavior in mental compulsion. So they may spend several hours every day focusing on their obsession, you know, and then doing it all the time. It's like a ritual, okay? Like OCD can be chronic, and it can interfere with a person's normal routine. Like, I'll share one of my OCD episodes. was when